This is a fallen angel that I made over 10 years ago, and today I'm going to be reviving my childhood project by kit-bashing a new fallen dark angel by using this combat patrol. Since I started building and painting miniatures again, I've become more ambitious with my kit bashes. From simple changes to make a miniature more interesting, to constructing a whole backstory for a custom Ogren. The real question here is, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to show you how you can revisit old projects and revive them by using all the new tricks that you've learnt since. And I can promise you that by the end of this video, you'll have all the tools that you need to revitalise them. This is Cursed Crusader Arts. This little trip down memory lane all started with a phone call when the boss called me to ask if I wanted anything from the Warhammer store. With a million ideas that typically need 3 different boxes of different bits, I was bamboozled beyond all comprehension. Finally, after getting her to essentially do a stocktake of the entire store, it came down to a close call between the Dark Angels and Black Templars combat patrols, with some plans for crazy grimdark experimentations.
I don't think you really deserve this.
In the end, I went with the former, explaining that I could turn them into fallen angels and therefore I wouldn't have to learn how to paint black armor.
What the hell you say? I raised a donut.
In my defense, the fallen I made as a kid were green. But why did I paint them green, you ask? Well, I saw this one single image of a Chaos Legion that had no name. They had green armor with black robes and red chaos arrows, and my brain went, hey, they kind of look like evil Dark Angels. And off I went to grab me some feathered maniacs to turn evil. I leaned into the idea further by painting any feathers and wings the same red as the regalia, and then put a green wash over the silver details to make them look more evil, because we all know that green is an evil colour when we're talking about jealousy or poisons. Fast forward over a decade later, and I have this box to turn into Fallen, and I have so much more lore to consider and many decisions to make. Yet all I can think about are the weird 70s platform boots that the guy with Gravis armor has. Man, the armor for Space Marines has gotten weird. Also, where are the cloaks and sensors? What kind of Dark Angel doesn't have a cloak? It was very clear that I would have to do a little kit bashing and take a few liberties here and there, but I had a clear vision in mind to bring this little childhood project back into the modern day. I started with the Intercessor Sergeant, who would, in this case, be a Chaos Champion. I got the core parts first, legs, torso, arms and the power pack all laid out and examined them thoroughly. These models were very different to the ones that I used to build, and they had all kinds of extra armor plates and details on them. Now rumour has it that the Fallen are little more than scavengers after 10,000 years of being chased around by their brothers in the Imperium of Man. With this information, and very little knowledge about any restrictions that Primaris armour may have, I decided that it wouldn't be so far-fetched that the Fallen would run off with the armour off of the backs of their Primaris enhanced siblings, resulting in them wearing green armour. So I carved away with my very blunt knife to remove some of the extra armour plates on the legs and arms, stripping them down to their base levels. Additionally, I cut away the gorget and the knee pads, and then drilled some bullet holes to show how the Fallen don't really have any access to forge worlds to manage their gear, and thus show the impact of 10,000 years on the run. The next big project was the power pack. I wanted to add something that made them look a little more chaotically aligned than simply having Dark Angels with black cloaks. Chaos Marines make their silhouette look larger by having these extensions on their power packs, so I decided to include that on my model too. Perhaps the Fallen decided to borrow from some Chaos Marines too. Are there even Chaos Primaris now, or is Fabius still crying after calling me in fun of him? With the main body and power pack ready to go, I needed to look at some of the details and the weapons that my champion was going to use. There was no way I was not going to give this Fallen Knight a power sword from the upgrade sprues that come with the combat patrol box, so that was an easy decision to make. I also shaved down the edges of the sword to make it look sharper. I have no idea what possessed me to make this unnecessary modification, but whilst I was doing it I took the time to shave off the little energy linking power thing that the power swords usually have. For the other arm, I was spoiled for choice. I no longer play the game, so my decisions were based from an aesthetic and story-based position, and the Combat Patrol kit has so many cool arm poses and options available to use. I chose to use this arm with the bolt pistol raised and ready whilst the bolt gun, or bolt rifle, hung from the arm. I saw an opportunity here to add to the story of exiled scavengers that were low on supplies, so I clipped off the scope, making them resort to using iron sights. I also decided to cut off the magazine to the rifle, and then attempted to carve out a hole that would sell the idea that our champion has run out of ammunition for his main weapon, and as a result has to resort to his sidearm. From here on, it was a case of getting a head suitable for our leader, adding some pouches, and the tilt shield for extra detail. I made the shoulder pads particularly damaged and cut the Imperial Eagle off of one, replacing it with a reliquary instead to limit the number of Imperial regalia on the armour. Then I had a great idea that turned into 2 hours of horrifying and fiddly work. I wanted my Fallen to have some skull trophies, and I wasn't about to put them on spikes, because for some reason I thought that spikes were too chaotic, even though they were going to have Chaos Stars painted on them. So that doesn't really make any sense.
He's stupid.
Anyway, I cut off 4 skulls from the box of skulls and cleaned them of all mould lines, and then began the task of drilling a hole through each one. I tried to put the holes in different positions and angles so that they would all sit differently once threaded together. That was the part that took so long, the threading together. After far too much time had passed, the skulls were finally attached to the string, and I began to wrap the excess around the pipes that I had glued onto the power pack, creating a nice little trophy to show that these aren't no Imperial lapdogs anymore. Finally, I finished up the damage by roughing up the armour with scratches, and I don't mean 1 or 2 scratches. I really messed this thing up. This was done in the hope that dry brushing would catch the edges and washes would sink into them to make these marines look more haggard and worn down. I supported this by applying some Armageddon dust in certain areas to add layers of muck, dust and grime that can be painted to reflect whatever kind of damage or corrosion we feel like doing when we paint the miniature. The only thing that is missing now is a cloak, which we'll tackle in another video when we have a squad ready to go. It's important to tell a story with our miniatures, but perhaps you're trying to build your own faction that's not already established in the lore. So check out this video where I KITBASH my own custom Renegade Ogryn. But whatever you do, make things, have fun, and I'll see you next time on Cursed Crusader Arts.